Mia, there we go. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. This is a big week. We've got a lot of stuff that we shipped and probably a lot of stuff to talk about. So let me jump straight into the Farcaster developer updates. So first big update, the single hub is live. We actually have one out there. People have started writing messages to it, and they've already given us feedback on things that that we need to patch up. So things seem to be going pretty well over there in terms of the hubs are actually stable, receiving messages, and all of that stuff. What's going less well is I think a lot of this are known issues, but Warpcast is not respecting all of those messages perfectly. So there's some cases where, like, if you update a very old message and you submit a delete request, it doesn't actually get deleted from the API yet, et cetera, et cetera. These are mostly like hub to Warpcast synchronization things, and they're an artifact of Warpcast was designed for Farcaster v1, and now it's shifting over to v2. We fixed all the most important ones, but there's a long tail of little things that we need to patch up. So we have a laundry list of 30 known issues that we need to go and fix, and it'll probably take us 2 weeks to get to them. We expect users will discover another set of things. People have already reported it. Jen actually found a couple this morning. AlphaCaster reported one yesterday. So we are collecting all of those and fixing them up as we go. So if you see some weirdness when you submit something to the hubs and it looks fine on the hubs, but on the Warpcast app, it doesn't show up correctly, your messages are probably settling on the hub pretty well, but Warpcast still has some work to do to get all those things dialed in. And we're going to be laser focused on that for the next couple of weeks. But if you see anything that seems funky, please over-report it to us. We're always happy with so everyone who's got one up and going. So far, so we have a testnet set of hubs completely isolated from the mainnet, which has real data. So we have a couple of bots running on this that generate like fake data every 10 seconds and broadcast it out there just to make sure they're settling. Users can jump in and broadcast any data they like. It's kind of an open, unauthenticated system. And so far, so good. We've been collecting error logs from all the developers. Everyone's been able to connect and get set up pretty quickly. And so we feel pretty good about where we are now, that when we turn on the hub mainnet and we let other people connect their hubs to our hubs, things will go well. But we're going to keep testing the pipes for another few days, do a few more stress tests over here before we roll everything out. And as for hub mainnet, we are starting to roll out access over the next week. So there's a few folks in the beta group. We're giving them access to our direct hub. We'll slowly start allowing permissioned hubs. So a few people have asked if they can run their own mainnet hubs, and we'll start connecting with them. We want to do this gradually, mostly because we want to see how the system performs under load. So we'll probably let 2 people connect, then 4, then 10, and so on, just so we don't overwhelm the system and take it down for everybody. But at some point over the next 2 weeks, we feel confident that everyone who's in the Telegram groups and wants to get access will have access to all of these hubs. And so if you're particularly interested in jumping on this early, you're like, hey, I want to run a mainnet hub, not just like talk to Warpcast mainnet hub, but actually run my own, let me know, and then we'll prioritize you at the top of the queue. Cool. And then really quickly on like what's happening after mainnet. So what's the team going to be focused on after these 2 weeks are done? There's a few priorities for us. One is there's a set of small new features that we want to ship. For example, location is not supported in the hubs today. We want to support it and then pump all the location data down. AMPs, which we've been talking about for a while, and there's a few other smaller things that have been on the dock, but we haven't actually gotten around to like shipping them yet. We're going to be working on all of those. The second thing that this helps us test is actually our upgrade pipeline. So we actually have a mechanism to upgrade and version hubs so that when we launch something new, all the hubs move forward. And so this will actually be a good test of that pipeline and getting that moved forward. Third thing is the hash scheme upgrade. So this goes back to the issue we talked about over the last weekend, which we went over the GitHub issue, where writing clients to talk to hubs in other languages is a little bit tricky because we're uniquely tied to some of the intricacies of TS Proto. So again, we want to ship an upgrade to how we do hashing, which will make it easier to connect from other languages. So all of these things we're going to try to bundle into one big update. Might take call it 6 weeks to get all of that out, and then all the hubs will get upgraded, and we'll be on this sort of 6-week release cadence where every 6 weeks a new version comes out with new features, new releases, and all of that. And all hub operators have to upgrade their hubs, which should be a pretty painless process. It's like, git checkout, a new release, and hit run. But that's kind of the cadence we're shooting for. The last thing that we'll focus on is also stability in adversarial environments. So we sort of assume that like over time, as more and more people join the network, some people will have malfunctioning hubs that spew out too many messages. Some people will be actively malicious or just probing the boundaries of the network, seeing what they can do. And it's probably fine at some small scale, but if it gets out of hand, it can actually put a lot of stress on hub operators and slow down the pace of communication between hubs. And so we'll be doing a lot more research and tactics into like how we can actually protect hubs against adversarial systems, mostly with like reputation-based solutions where hubs have identities, they build up trust between identities, and when new hubs emerge, they sort of emerge in a low trusted state, they have lower rate limits, et cetera, and they earn higher rate limits over time as they're well-functioning members of the ecosystem. That's probably like an ongoing cat and mouse game that will continue on forever for the life cycle of the hub, but there's some chunk of work that we can put down in the first month to make sure that the network is pretty stable. Cool. Any questions on that? Sweet. Jason, on the timetable, I think right now I would say you can launch it in theory and it will like work at a high level, and that new casts and new reactions and new likes will work fine. So if you're posting net new messages, I think that works well. The part that I'm a little more hesitant on is I think a lot of the subtleties with things like deleting older casts and moving messages around are a little buggy, as some of the people on your team have reported. The way I would think about the timetable now is I think roughly in 2 weeks, call it 95% of the most painful bugs will go away, and Warpcast will be pretty compliant with all of the spec. And so if you want to be safe, I would say planning for 2 weeks from now is probably going to be the like, hey, everything seems and works really well. If you want to be aggressive, you can launch sooner, knowing that as Warpcast fixes up all those bugs, those things will revert to their correct state. So we maintain like a full backup of all data. So if you send a delete and it doesn't get deleted today, when we actually see it in the future, we'll fix it up, because the state is all settling correctly on the hubs. It's just that the Warpcast app is not injecting it correctly right now. I can also share, I'll do this in the Telegram group after the call, but I can share the like screenshot of like the tickets that we have, just so you have context for what they are. But I think all of the ones that we have prioritized for the next 2 weeks, I would call moderately painful. Where if you want like a super well-functioning polished client, you probably want to wait until after all those things are done. But if you're okay, like, rolling it out to a small group of beta users or something like that, you could probably get started.
Thanks, Varun. I think we'd rather do when it's ready, and just want to make sure that we're all kind of holding against the other on this. So,
Cool.
kind of taking your lead on it. So when you guys say like, here's the things that we're saying, everyone should try to, let's get these done before everyone launches. We're cool with that. I'm a little more hesitant from our side to kind of get out there and then pull things back and be a little kind of shaky still. So we'd rather go on your timetable. Yeah.
Cool. Look, that makes total sense. And I think the more and more as we get into this, like this is effectively going to become a permissionless system, and everyone can kind of make their own decisions on where to go. Like I know AlphaCaster YOLO'd a little and launched yesterday, even though we probably still have some pretty big issues on the hubs, but hey, it's working to some extent. Cool. We also have a community call today, 5 p.m. Dan's running it. We'll post the link on Farcaster. I think Dan might have already done it. And we'll see some of you on there. This is less technical and more to talk about just like higher level things about Farcaster. Sweet. Let me flip over to Warpcaster Dev updates, just giving people high level updates on what we're doing on the client side and on the developer oriented side. So from the dev facing side first, the thing that we're working on now, this is kind of part of the like what I called out earlier as the like Farcaster to Warpcast cleanups. Which is the address rotation. So if you transfer assets from, let's say you start, Farcaster sets up a wallet for you, you have an ID in that wallet, you move that from A to B, you'll mostly be able to post new messages fine, but on Warpcast, some of the older messages don't have like your mention structured correctly and things like that. So there's lots of little details that we want to go button up over there. And when this is done, what you'll be able to do is actually just like, get an address, you want to change your address, you can move all your assets over to the new address and things will work just fine. So that's the big piece that we're working on over there. And then the hub integration is the other piece that I talked about, which is all this long tail bugs and other issues. We're not planning any changes to the Warpcast API at this time. I think they've actually been working pretty well for all the folks using them. So, and we expect they'll continue to work, but they're going to be subject to the same bugs that you see on the client. So as we fix them on the client, they'll automatically be fixed on the APIs as new data is coming in from the hubs. Cool. Other things that we're focused on. So since we last met, the web client launched. I think we launched it like right around the day of the last dev call, or maybe the day after. We are still focused on web client plus, which I think of as like bringing feature parity to the web client and some minor improvements. So there's still a lot of features on the desktop app that are not there. We're going to be bringing them onwards. There's some small new features like recommendations and things like that that we're going to be adding into the web client over the next few days. So expect to see some of that rolling out soon. The other thing, I forgot about this for the developer side, the signer request flow is now live. Like folks have been using it, seems to be working pretty well. We're shipping some like UI polish updates to make the text a little easier to understand for people, but overall end-to-end flow seems to be working fine. If you guys have any feedback, run into any issues, please let us know. We'd love to prioritize making that as easy as possible. So as people go through the flow and sign up for different applications, they're able to log in and get connected. Cool. Things that are further out, AMP's recovery system, those are going to be a little further out in May when we're working on the stuff. And mainnet integration, I think, is realistically going to be in June or in the second half of this year once we actually have the contracts and all the upgrades working correctly. That's pretty much it from the Warpcast side of things. Any questions on any of this stuff?
I had one question on the hub upgrades. Does the hub upgrade means that all the data will be resynced on the hub?
No, the hubs should upgrade smoothly. So you'll just need to, so the way the upgrade will work is if the hubs store data to like a RocksDB instance, which is stored on the whatever machine you're running the hub on. When you upgrade the hub, you'll simply download a new version, run it over the same file, it'll connect, it'll pick up all the data. So it'll resume exactly where it left off.
Got it.
Cool. Any other questions? Embeds specifically, Jason? I don't have a specific date on embeds, but we have this like delete all the things you guys flagged for us are on the next 2-week roadmap. The deletes, the embeds, the all of this stuff. Is there a particular pain point with embeds that you want to see solved first?
It's just that we're working on some features where users would have casts and embeds that we're trying to follow the spec for the hub. So to make sure that it's reflected properly on the Warpcast side.
Got it. Yep. Yeah, I think my sense is we're prioritizing that. It's as high on our list. I think some of the other bugs you guys have reported are actually potentially like more breaking for you guys. So we're prioritizing those first, like the delete bug and a few of the other ones.
Agree. Yeah.
Cool. Last thing, shout outs. We've had a lot of people running hubs. So DF, Gavi, Eddie, 16, Greg, Fern, Landon, Razzle. Thank you guys all for jumping in and running hubs. We appreciate the quick turnaround and all the feedback that you've given us on the error logs and everything. And also 16 and Eddie for helping us test the mainnet hubs and pushing messages through. And I guess now Jam as well with all the new stuff that you guys have done over the night since I last wrote this. So thank you. Keep the bug reports coming and we'll get this turned around quickly. Last two things, help wanted. If anyone is looking to support us, running a testnet hub and giving us feedback would be super helpful. So just more the merrier. We just want to get as much testing on as many different networking and infrastructure and firewall configurations as possible. The other thing is if you're setting up testnet hubs on cloud providers, we have a couple of guides here for the big ones. So we have AWS EC2, DigitalOcean. But if you've gone through the setup process for Azure, GCP, or anyone, Linode, any one of the N other providers on there, and you want to write up a guide to make it easier for the people following, that would always be appreciated, and we'd be happy to link it in the docs over here. Sweet. Well, that's all for today, folks. I'll pause for another minute to see if anyone has questions, and if not, we'll call this a wrap. All right, that's it. Thanks everyone for coming today, and we'll talk to you all soon.